This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Thursday, February 6th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
The Trump administration walking back some of the president's comments about taking over the Gaza Strip. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Protests in Washington over the dismantling of USAID. Donna Warder has details.
President Trump has signed an executive order aimed at banning transgender athletes from girls' and women's sports. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
A federal judge chimes in on birthright citizenship
for the children of slaves.
I'm Clayton Neville.
On Wall Street, stocks were higher yesterday. The indexes rose even as big-name company shares fell. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
The heist of 100,000 eggs from the back of a trailer in Pennsylvania has become a whodunit. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
All ahead on America in the Morning. One day after President Trump floated the idea of the U.S. taking over the Gaza Strip and turning it into a Riviera-like location, Trump administration officials are walking some of those comments back. In Washington, John Stolnis has reaction from lawmakers.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt disputing the notion by reporters that the president's Gaza plan runs counter to the America First policies he prioritized on the campaign trail.
I would reject the premise of your question that this forces the United States to be entangled in conflicts abroad. The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza.
Speaking during a trip to Guatemala yesterday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio also downplayed the extent to which the U.S. would be involved in Gaza reconstruction.
And the only thing President Trump has done very generously, in my view, is offer the United States willingness to step in, clear the debris, clean the place up from all the destruction that's on the ground, clean it up of all these unexploded munitions. And in the meantime, the people living there will not be able, the people who call that home will not be able to live there while you have crews coming in and removing debris, while you have munitions being removed, etc.
The idea floated by Trump during his news conference with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu Tuesday lacked details and assumed neighboring countries like Egypt and Jordan would take in the 1.8 million Palestinians who would be displaced during a total rebuild of Gaza, and offered no clarity on if they'd be allowed to return. Speaking on Fox News, Netanyahu praised Trump's idea.
The actual idea of allowing first Gazans who want to leave. I mean, what's wrong with that? This is the first good idea that I've heard. It's a remarkable idea.
Democratic Senator Chris Murphy believes Trump's Gaza comments are an attempt to distract the public from dissatisfaction over moves being made by Elon Musk's Doge committee.
Trump's talking about this ridiculous Gaza plan because he's trying to change the conversation. We're not going to invade and occupy Gaza.
U.S. allies in the Middle East have cautioned the Trump administration that relocating Palestinians from Gaza could cause instability to the region and ultimately would end a two-state solution. John Stolnis, Washington.
A rally in Washington featuring several Senate Democrats fighting the budget and program cuts at USAID. Reaction from some of the organization's workers. Donna Warder reports.
Many USAID workers overseas have been scrambling to pack up their families and belongings after the Trump administration pulled almost all agency staffers off the job worldwide. One USAID contractor working in an often violent region in the Middle East speaks of waking up one morning earlier this week and being blocked from access to government email and other systems. And the person says an emergency panic button app on their smartphone had been wiped off, putting the contractor and family in danger because they weren't able to reach the U.S. government for help if needed. The crowd chanted USAID and Elon Musk has got to go, as one by one Democratic members of the U.S. House and Senate told the crowd that it's time to stand up and fight the Trump administration's decision to pull almost all U.S. aid staffers around the world as part of Elon Musk's budget cutting of federal programs he believes are wasteful.
Elon Musk's effort to dismantle the Agency for International Development is a gift to China, it's a gift to Russia, it's a gift to our adversaries around the world.
Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland says dismantling USAID will harm national interests.
Getting rid of AID makes us all less safe. It is also downright illegal.
Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey says the Democrats will fight back.
We
will cooperate with no appointments when it comes to the State Department. No appointments when it comes to foreign policy. The first thing we're going to do in the Senate is not cooperate with the illegal and unconstitutional acts that they are trying to do.
USAID has been one of the agency's hardest hit by cost-cutting efforts.
They're grabbing the money so that when they put a tax bill on the table in the next 6 weeks, they can give it all away to Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and other rich folks, and we will not let them do that.
Donna Warder, Washington.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. Sleep better together. Save 50% on the new Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Limited time, exclusively at a Sleep Number store. Girls and women's sports will remain so. That when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. There's rain in the west and snow in the east. With the forecast, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
After a bit of a break in some areas on Wednesday, active weather returns to the rest of the west coast today as the latest in a long string of storms pushes inland, with periods of rain from southwestern Oregon through California's central coast and high elevation snow that can be heavy at times through much of the Sierra Nevada. Lighter rain, or at least fewer hours of it, even reached the Los Angeles area from this latest storm, bringing a round of what is still much needed precipitation within an abnormally dry start to the year. Along the Pacific Northwest coast, rain and snow showers continue to start the day before gradually ending, with snow at times farther inland through much of Oregon and into the northern Rockies. The other main story for the day today is the large winter storm sliding across the eastern third or so of the nation, with lingering snow and flurries for the upper Midwest and much of the Great Lakes region, but some areas of freezing drizzle and freezing rain from lower Michigan eastward through much of central and eastern Pennsylvania and southern New England. The precipitation may start as snow before changing to an icy mix or simply rain from northern and western New York to central Vermont and southern New Hampshire, even around the Portland, Maine area. Colder air then follows through the end of the work week as highs fall 5 to 10 degrees lower than temperatures were around midweek. 1 to 3 inches of snow can be expected through today from northeastern Pennsylvania across much of the eastern half of New York and throughout New England, with up to 6 inches for the highest elevations of northern New York and New England. Most of the rest of the nation has a dry day in store, with gusty winds developing behind the storm today from Wisconsin eastward into northern Ohio and western New York. In Columbus, Ohio, morning showers give way to some sun returning with a high of 50. For Denver, it's a colder day in store with some sun, the high 54. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. President Trump has signed a new executive order, this one following through on a campaign promise aimed at banning transgender athletes from girls' and women's sports. More on the story from correspondent Sagar Meghani.
With this executive order, the war on women's sports is over.
In the White House East Room.
Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
The president found during the campaign his pledge to keep men out of women's sports resonated beyond party lines. His order allows the government to penalize any school receiving federal funding if they let transgender athletes compete. It's the administration's latest move to limit transgender rights, and the president says it extends to the 2028 Olympics, which will be in Los Angeles.
America categorically rejects transgender lunacy. We want them to change everything having to do with the Olympics.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
There's a hold on President Trump's executive order surrounding birthright citizenship. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
A ruling handed down by a federal judge this week blocks President Donald Trump's order to restrict birthright citizenship. Under that premise, if you're born in America, you're an American citizen. President Trump has said he thinks the order will eventually hold up in the courts and told reporters that birthright citizenship was meant for the slaves.
This was not meant for the whole world to come in and pile into the United States of America, everybody coming in and totally unqualified people with perhaps unqualified children. This wasn't meant for that. This was meant, when it was originally done, for the children of slaves.
According to the judge's ruling, President Trump's executive order conflicts with the plain language of the 14th Amendment. She said it contradicts the 125-year-old binding Supreme Court precedent and runs counter to the country's 250-year history of citizenship by birth. She said her court won't be the first to endorse the president's interpretation. The order was set to go into effect February 19th. It's now on hold as the legal process plays out. I'm Clayton Neville.
Ripple effect to the shortage of construction workers when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Another roller coaster day in the markets. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a winning day for stocks yesterday. The Dow popped up 300 points as investors sort of forgot about tariffs for a while and went shopping for stocks on sale. Amgen shares were up 6%. Big name companies struggled, while smaller names did better.
I mean, it's pretty unassailable, the market's ability on display to just kind of rebalance itself. It's like, okay, raise the degree of difficulty. Google, Amazon, Apple, Tesla, Palantir, Uber, all down a lot, and somehow you get the S&P positive.
CNBC's Mike Santoli. Gold closed at another record high yesterday, its fourth new high of the year. Ford reported better than expected quarterly results after the closing bell last night, but it's forecasting a tougher year this year. Shares tanked 6% in after-hours trading.
When you talk about tariffs, about 12% of the vehicles they sell in the U.S. are built in Mexico. Far lower exposure than GM and Stellantis. Still, would be an impact if they're ever put in place.
CNBC's Phil LeBeau. Companies hired more people than expected last month. ADP says 183,000 new jobs were added. The government's big January jobs report will be out tomorrow morning. That includes government hiring. What was the big surprise from the ADP report? Well, it may be related to the Trump crackdown on immigration.
Construction. We're still in need of residential construction. So I'm surprised to see that construction jobs were so short, only 3,000 this month. I really think it's tied to a labor shortage, not a shortage in demand. And so if we're going to see that support for housing, and remember, housing feeds into inflation, if we don't have enough housing supply, then we really need to see more job gains in construction to support that industry.
ADP economist Neela Richardson on CNBC. HR software company Workday said it's slashing almost 2,000 jobs, moving into AI. Struggling cosmetics giant Estee Lauder cutting 7,000 jobs. General Motors says it's cutting more than 1,000 people at its discontinued Cruise robotaxi business. Super Bowl tickets for Chiefs Eagles in New Orleans this Sunday, being found on resale sites for less than last year's tickets at this time. As of yesterday, you could buy a ticket to get into the game this Sunday for under $4,000. On today's watch list, we're going to get earnings from a biggie, Amazon, plus Manjaro and Zepbound maker Eli Lilly, and KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell parent Yum Brands. We find out how many people applied for unemployment benefits last week. It's the NBA trade deadline, and it's round one of the Waste Management Phoenix Open in Scottsdale, Arizona.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. Feds put the brakes on Musk's Doge when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. Here with America in the Morning. Justice Department attorneys have agreed to temporarily restrict staffers associated with Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency from accessing Treasury Department payment systems. Union members and retirees sued, saying that providing Doge access to the government's massive payment and collection system violates federal privacy laws. This after Forbes reported that Doge representatives had access to Medicare and Medicaid services payment information, which provides health insurance for about 1 in 4 Americans. Shifting gears, as egg prices continue to set record highs, police in Pennsylvania are trying to crack who hatched this caper, as someone's being sought for poaching an entire truckload of over 100,000 eggs. Scrambling to bring us the details, here's Lisa Dwyer.
The heist of 100,000 eggs from the back of a trailer in Pennsylvania has become a whodunit the police have yet to crack. Police say the eggs were snatched from the back of a Pete and Jerry's Organics distribution trailer Saturday night. Officials are following up with any possible witnesses and are looking into surveillance footage that could help them identify the perpetrator. The eggs are worth about $40,000, making the crime a felony. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Eventually someone will have egg on their face. America in the Morning for Thursday, February 6th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour,
the Trump administration is walking back the idea that President Trump wants Palestinians permanently displaced from Gaza. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Some tension in the GOP as leaders crunch the numbers. I'm Clayton Neville.
Tranny.
A lawmaker goes off the rails with a string of transgender slurs. I'm Bob Brown. That story next.
Nationwide protest against Donald Trump. Alleged Ohio shooter captured. And who owns the Proud Boys name?
Amazon's Alexa is about to get a new AI upgrade. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
2 major summer movie trailers dropped this week. What else is coming? I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. America in the Morning continues. A serious winter storm is affecting the Great Lakes, Midwest, Northeast, and Mid-Atlantic. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
As a sprawling winter storm continues its way eastward through the day today, a large area of mixed frozen precipitation moves along with it, bringing snow and sleet changing to rain or freezing rain to areas such as upstate New York, northeastern Pennsylvania, and much of southern New England. Farther to the north, snow may simply transition to some lighter rain or drizzle before ending in places such as central New York, with much of Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire staying snowy for much of the day instead. Total snow accumulations of at least 1 to 3 inches are expected to spread from eastern Pennsylvania across northern New Jersey and much of Long Island through New England, with higher amounts of 3 to perhaps 6 inches from the high ground of western Massachusetts and Vermont across much of New Hampshire and western Maine. The warmer side of the very same storm brings rain from southern New Jersey to Ohio and parts of Indiana and points southward across much of the mid-Atlantic, the interior southeast, and the Ohio Valley, and there could be some thunder embedded within this wet weather from southwestern Pennsylvania to Arkansas. More showery conditions can be expected to the south of there into far eastern Texas and the Louisiana Gulf Coast, but most of Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina should turn out dry through the daylight hours. Behind that storm, most of the nation from the plains into the Intermountain West looks dry today once flurries and lingering steady snow end over the upper Midwest. However, the same cannot be said of the West Coast, where yet another storm brings some rain at times from the southern California coast across most of the central and northern part of the state, where heavy mountain snow is also expected through the Sierra Nevada. Rain and snow showers dot the Pacific Northwest coast as well, even reaching places such as Seattle. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. President Trump's proposal to repair and rebuild the Gaza Strip following the Hamas-led 2023 attack on Israel has been met worldwide with concerns and, in some cases, rebuke, with the head of the UN calling the president's idea ethnic cleansing. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports the White House is saying that all options are on the table, but above all else, there must be peace in the region.
Gaza has become a demolition site because Hamas launched that brutal attack on Israel on October the 7th. And so, again, I would stress, President Trump wants to ensure that this can be a place where all people can live in peace. He is a peacemaker in chief. And as for how that will be accomplished, the president and his team are talking with our allies in the region to consider next steps.
The Trump administration is walking back the idea that President Trump wants Palestinians permanently displaced from Gaza.
The only thing President Trump has done very generously, in my view, is offer the United States willingness to step in, clear the debris, clean the place up from all the destruction that's on the ground, clean it up of all these unexploded munitions.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio and White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt compare Gaza to a demolition site, the scene of a natural disaster, and say the president's generously offered to rebuild it.
In the interim, obviously, people are going to have to live somewhere while you're rebuilding it.
The president has made it clear that they need to be temporarily relocated out of Gaza.
That's not what the president said yesterday.
If we can get a beautiful area to resettle people permanently in nice homes.
American allies and Republican lawmakers pushed back on his suggestion that the U.S. own Gaza. Palestinians are rejecting calls for even a temporary move, worrying if they leave, they'll never be let back in. But even then, the president himself pushed back on his pitch being rebuffed.
Everybody loves it.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
From Boston to L.A., Seattle to Miami, Denver to Chicago, Philadelphia to New York, coordinated protests were held across America, in some cases shutting down highways and city streets, railing against actions taken by President Trump in his first days in office. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
Thousands of demonstrators across the country are protesting the early actions of President Donald Trump's administration.
We must resist. We must be in the streets. We must take every possible action to stop what is happening.
A protest organized online using the hashtag 5051, which stands for 50 protests, 50 states, 1 day, took place outside the Texas Capitol.
No Trump! No KKK! No fascist USA!
Progressive activist David Velez says he wants lawmakers to speak up.
We are here to hold them accountable. We have people that are up in Senate that are not doing their jobs. They're not confronting this man who is using his power, his dictator-like powers. That's not what America is.
And outside a Philadelphia courthouse, organizers cheerily chanted,
I believe that we will win! I believe that we will win!
Demonstrators spoke up about everything from the president's immigration crackdown to his rollback of transgender rights and a proposal to forcibly transfer Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Tensions are rising among some members of the GOP as congressional leadership looks for a path forward on President Trump's priorities. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
House Speaker Mike Johnson busy on Capitol Hill with plans on how to move ahead with President Trump's agenda.
Continuing our efforts to protect American communities by voting on the Halt Fentanyl Act, which will permanently schedule fentanyl and all fentanyl-related substances as Schedule I narcotics.
The process in getting that bill across the finish line is that indeed a process. Some Republicans pushing back against using budget reconciliation to pass Trump's agenda. That, though, would need a near-unanimous vote to work. Johnson reportedly still working out a way to unlock the reconciliation process. Republicans proposed an initial budget resolution with a $500 billion tax cut floor, which hardline conservatives turned down. They want to see overall cuts of $2 to $5 trillion.
Bottom line is we're continuing to have the conversation we need to have and figuring out between budget, ways and means, what we need to do on tax policy and spending. You guys have seen a lot of the reporting and what we're talking about. And tinkering with the length of the time of the tax cuts and figuring out what the total number would be versus what we can get on spending cuts. And that's the rub, right? Is figuring that out.
Congressman Chip Roy of Texas spoke to reporters after a closed-door luncheon with Republicans.
We had a general agreement that was widely reported in December of $2.5 trillion over 10, which is $250 billion a year in spending restraint. I think if we can do that, then we'd have a real good shot at being able to unlock all this and move forward. But we're going to have a serious sense of resolve on spending.
Roy was asked about what role cuts made by the new Department of Government Efficiency, known as DOGE, will play in the process.
Well, those cuts are great, but then we got to see what those turn into in practice, right? We got to see what happens with impoundment. We got to see what happens with savings, how much it is in the aggregate. But then Congress continues to appropriate. So then those dollars, are they going to be saved? Are they going to be returned to the Treasury? There's still a lot to get worked out there.
While the idea of reconciliation is still being hammered out inside the Capitol, the GOP also starting to talk about a March 14th government funding deadline. I'm Clayton Neville.
When we return, South Carolina Congresswoman challenged over transgender slur. And what's a Super Bowl ticket going to cost you? Those items and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. Newly released data from ground-based radar suggests an Army helicopter was flying higher than it was supposed to when it collided with American Airlines Flight 5342 a week ago, killing all 67 people aboard both aircraft. The National Transportation Safety Board says the helicopter was flying at about 300 feet at the time of the mid-air collision with the plane on its approach to Reagan National Airport. But the report says the data is rounded out to the nearest 100 feet, which means it could have been flying slightly higher. The Army helicopter was flying a training mission in a dedicated air corridor where it was not allowed to fly above 200 feet. A South Carolina Congresswoman is facing questions after her repeated use of a transgender slur in the halls of Congress. Bob Brown has details.
A war of words in a House oversight hearing Wednesday between South Carolina Republican Representative Nancy Mace and Virginia Democratic Committee Chair Jerry Connolly over Mace's repeated slur in describing transgenders in a hearing on USAID funding. Mace said USAID awarded $2 million to strengthen trans-led organizations to deliver gender-affirming health care in Guatemala. She then asked the committee, does this advance the interests of American citizens paying for, in her words, trannies in Guatemala to the tune of $2 million, yes or no? After her allotted time, Connolly made it clear the use of the term is considered a slur in the LGBTQ and transgender communities. That's when Mace cut him off.
Tranny, tranny, tranny. I don't really care. You want in women's bathrooms, and I'm not going to have it.
To me, a slur is a slur, and here in the committee, a level of decorum requires us to try consciously to avoid slurs.
But Mace countered, saying she wasn't going to be counseled by a man over men in women's spaces or men who have mental health issues dressing as a woman.
Decorum is at the discretion of the chair.
That's
I will be honest,
Mr. Chairman.
with the ranking member. I'm not up to date on my politically correct LGBTQ terminology. We'll look into that.
I'm Bob Brown.
A suspect is in custody after a mass workplace shooting and subsequent manhunt for the shooter in Ohio. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
Police in the Columbus University District have arrested Bruce Reginald Foster III, the suspect in a deadly mass shooting Tuesday night at his workplace, KDC-1, a large cosmetics company warehouse in New Albany, Ohio. One person is dead and 5 people were wounded by gunfire. ABC 6 talked with his neighbor Luke, who lives next door to the suspect and witnessed the arrest.
Just shouted, just raise your hand, and they just handcuffed them.
He has spoke with investigators. I don't know. I wouldn't call him fully cooperative.
New Albany Police Chief Greg Jones says the investigation is underway and a gun was recovered at the shooting scene.
5 of them were transported to the hospital. I can't release their condition at this point. The 6th victim was deceased in the building. We have 1 confirmed fatality. We have 5 that were transported to the hospital.
Jones says Foster was on the clock for several hours before the shooting took place.
There's no reports of any type of confrontation or any type of dispute.
New Albany Mayor Sloan Spalding says their Ohio community is grieving.
Our community is heartbroken.
This has been a very tragic situation. Our thoughts go out to the victims, their families, and everybody that works at this facility. This is something that we hope that would never happen in our community, but we prepare for it.
Audio courtesy WSYX at WTTE. I'm Jennifer King.
Well, it's still a pretty penny, but tickets for this week's big game in New Orleans are selling for less than they have in years past. Get out your wallets as correspondent Gethin Coolbaugh reports.
Prices on the secondary ticket market for Sunday's Super Bowl in New Orleans are much less than last year's big game and declining. While still high by historical standards, the average price for the Chiefs-Eagles game at TickPick was $6,552 as of Tuesday. If that amount holds, it would be the website's third highest for a Super Bowl. Last year's game between the Chiefs and 49ers was the highest, with an average price at that site of $9,136. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
Amazon has announced a major press release scheduled for the end of this month, and Alexa could finally be getting its new AI brain. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech News.
Amazon has set a date of February 26 to have a press release announcement of the most significant upgrade to Alexa since it was released more than a decade ago. Alexa has never turned a profit for Amazon, and this could be a risky, feature-rich upgrade, mostly due to the fact that there are more than 500 million Alexa-enabled devices already in the market. Amazon has been vague about whether or not it will charge between $5 and $10 for the upgrade, but has confirmed Classic Alexa will always be free. It is said that Amazon will rely, at least in part, on artificial intelligence software from the startup Anthropic, which it has invested over $8 billion. New features might include the ability to respond to multiple prompts in one sequence, and even act as an agent on behalf of users. And if you really love Alexa, wait for Valentine's Day, when Amazon has declared it will give a go or no-go to the new project. Find me on X, @ChuckPalm.
America in the Morning's Robert Workman is in with sports.
NBA last night, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander dropped 50 for the Thunder as they blocked out the Suns 140-109. It's the third time he's hit the half-century mark in his last 7 games. Anthony Edwards had 49 as the Timberwolves tore up the Bulls 127-108. Coach Chris Finch.
As the way we are right now, we need these big nights from him. And loved his aggressiveness, getting to the line. I thought other guys were really big, too. I thought Rudy was huge. Everyone was on the offensive glass.
Nuggets got 39 from Michael Porter Jr. and 38 from Nikola Jokic as they pounded the Pelicans 144-119. Cavaliers nipped the Pistons 118-115 on Darius Garland's 31-foot jumper at the buzzer. Spurs clipped the Hawks 126-125. Victor Wembanyama hit the go-ahead free throw with 2 seconds left. Wins for the Bucks, Heat, Jazz, Magic, Grizzlies, and Wizards. The NBA trade deadline comes up today at 3 p.m. Eastern. On Wednesday, Jimmy Butler went from the Heat to the Warriors in a 4-team mega deal. Andrew Wiggins goes to Miami. The Pelicans traded forward Brandon Ingram to the Raptors, and the Bucks sent Chris Middleton to the Wizards for Kyle Kuzma. College basketball, top 5 wins for number 2 Duke and number 4 Tennessee. NHL, the Rangers beat the Bruins, Oilers shaded the Blackhawks in overtime, and the Kings scored 4 in the third to double up the Canadians. Super Bowl 59 coming up Sunday in New Orleans. The Chiefs going for the three-peat against the Eagles. And with spring training camps opening next week, the last few big-name free agents are looking for homes. But it looks like Pete Alonso will not be sending out change of address cards. He's reportedly going back to the Mets on a 2-year, $54 million contract. That's Thursday Sports.
Thank you, sir. When we return on America in the Morning, where profits are going from Proud Boys merch after these messages. This is America in the Morning. The organization known as the Proud Boys are still being called the Proud Boys, but the group will no longer be able to make any money from selling merchandise in the future with that name. Correspondent Donna Warder tells us why a court verdict says those profits instead may go to a historic black church in Washington, D.C.
A Superior Court judge in Washington, D.C. has awarded the city's Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church the rights to the Proud Boys trademark after the group defaulted on a $2.8 million judgment. The church was awarded the judgment after Enrique Tarrio, the then leader of the Proud Boys, confessed to taking part in the burning of Black Lives Matter banners at that church and another one. Following a December 2020 pro-Trump rally, the church sued for vandalism. Now the Proud Boys can't sell any of its merchandise with its name or symbol without the church's consent, and the church can try to seize any money made from selling the group's merchandise. Tarrio, who was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison for orchestrating the January 6, 2021 riot, but was freed after President Donald Trump signed a clemency order, suggested in a post on X that the Proud Boys rename themselves to African Methodist Episcopal Boys. Donna Warder, Washington.
It may only be February and we're still in the grips of winter, but Hollywood is already getting a head start on summer in the movies. Entertainment reporter Kevin Carr has details.
Even with the cold of winter, Hollywood is preparing for the summer movie season by dropping major trailers this week. Likely one of the biggest movies of the summer got a trailer yesterday.
I can guarantee your safety. I mean, more or less. More or less?
Jurassic World Rebirth pits another group of people against vicious dinosaurs, and we all know the drill.
This island was the research facility for the original Jurassic Park.
You now have 5 months to binge watch the previous 6 movies before the new one opens for the 4th of July.
These dinosaurs were too dangerous for the original park. The worst of the worst. We're left here.
Even with the movie coming out next week, Marvel Studios gave us a first look at one of their most anticipated films of the year.
Welcome to the Baxter Building.
We make a point to do family dinner every week. We're all here.
The Fantastic Four: First Steps is the third live-action version of Marvel's First Family. Due in theaters on July 25th, this evokes a retro-futuristic 1960s feel with stars Vanessa Kirby and Pedro Pascal.
Whatever life throws at us, we'll face it together.
With the Super Bowl this weekend, Disney has already said that it would have a new Snow White trailer.
You'll be safe from the Queen here.
And we can also hope for a greater look at the live-action Lilo and Stitch. Other possible Super Bowl trailers include Marvel's Thunderbolts, Disney's Tron Ares, and Paramount's Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning.
I need you to trust me.
I'm Kevin Carr.
America in the Morning for Thursday, February 6th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.